sizing, and you're putting your own country down in the eyes of the investors who purchase your 30-year bond, a piece of paper, for, oversubscribing 4 times at 200 basis points above the US Treasury. That's the kind of confidence we had 2 years ago, right? So there's something which we can do to fix it. The economy has derailed because there was nobody managing the show. We have to bring the economy back on track. And what is the way out? We may be emotionally all against the IMF, but let's recognize the facts that unless you have a shot in the arm in form of increase in your reserves, there is not going to be restoration of confidence in Pakistan's economy. If you can't get it from China, you can't get it from Saudi Arabia, you can't get it from the United States, you better do it quickly without wasting time from the multilateral institutions. In return, they will monitor your economy. They will make sure that the quality of economic management and governance is up to the mark. Is it bad? How is it bad? If we can't manage it ourselves and we are borrowing money from somebody else, shouldn't we expect that body to make sure that we are on the right track, that we are moving the train from the tracks which we have derailed to the tracks again on a path to economic growth? People have short memories. In 2000, we had 1.8% growth. We entered into an IMF program. We did all the measures which the IMF always did. We drew 16 tranches after every quarterly review of the IMF. People say we were one tranche country. And this is a record that 16 tranches were withdrawn from the IMF account because we fulfilled all the performance criteria. And what happened after that? You guys know better than me. We established access to international market. In 2004, we went for the first Eurobond, then we went for Islamic Sukuk, then we went to the US market for 10 years, then we went to 30 years. What happened to the real economy? The real economy had a 5-year uninterrupted average growth rate of 7%. What happened to poverty? The poverty came down from 33% to 25%. And whatever people may say and quibble about the poverty reduction, the unemployment came down from 8.5% to 6.2%. And the investment ratio, people say it was a consumption-led economy. I'm really very amazed because people don't check the facts. It's 23%, which has never happened in the history of Pakistan. The average investment GDP ratio in this country has hovered around 15 to 16%. So what is required? Reduce your fiscal deficit. Don't borrow from the central bank. The government should stop borrowing from the central bank. Resume your privatization. I know these days privatization is a 4-letter word, but I can assure you that for sustained economic growth and efficiency and competing in the international markets, you have to have a vibrant, dynamic private sector. Bureaucrats like me cannot run any enterprise because we are trained to say no rather than to say yes. I have been around the steel mill where I was asked to restructure the steel mill in 2000 by the President of Pakistan. The member finance, who was a bureaucrat, for 3 years did not allow any repairs of the coke battery oven. And what happens? You completely have a collapse of the output because he came account service. And the audit and account service people are not financial managers who are used to take decisions of millions of dollars of investment. They are there to stop the investment. So I am convinced that unless we get government out of the business, we will not be able. This is not a very popular thing these days, but I have to say this is the truth. But at the same time, you must make sure that there is effective regulatory oversight, whether it is, and Farooq was very kind to mention about the banking sector, and this is the real test of the survival of the banking sector. In a global financial turmoil, if it was a weak financial sector or the banking sector, it would have just gone down the drain. Why was it? We had a very strong regulatory oversight. We completely changed the human resources, both in the banking sector as well as the State Bank, brought in technology, where at the end of the evening, I could have the key indicators of the banking sector at my screen and take measures rather than wait for 18 months for the surveillance report to come and reach my desk. So regularly oversight over the private sector is essential, whether it is NAPRA, whether it is OGRA, whether this is Competition Commission, whether this is SECP, or any other regulatory agency. The rules of the game have to be enforced. That's what the competition is all about. If you don't enforce the game in the way it ought to be done, then you have excessive risk-taking, and that's what happened to the shadow banking system in the United States, that the banks were regulated by the Fed, by OCC, by SEC, by the state banking superintendent, and by FDIC. And the hedge funds, private equity funds, investment banks, stockbroking, insurance was nobody's business. And the risk was being transferred from the banking sector's balance sheets to these shadow banking system, and nobody was actually regulating them. So you have a very real example of where the regulation fails: excessive risk-taking, excessive leveraging. The leverage ratios of the investment banks like Merrill Lynch and Lehman Brothers were 30-1. Now you are taking somebody else's money and playing with it. Upside gains are yours. Downside risks are to be socialized. It's a good game. Everybody would like to play that game. So it's essential in countries like Pakistan that you have strong regulatory oversight. The third thing which you have to do is to allow the exports